Welcome to Play It by Tier, a series created by the Switch Clicks. This is a series where we make a review on a video game, movie, or pretty much any kind of media you can think of, and at the end of each episode, we throw it onto our continuously congested tier list with letter rankings. In this not so special episode, we're actually going to be reviewing a couple of games instead of one. The first game is a skipping rope that you can't trip over. Jump Rope Challenge. It was a product of the COVID-19 pandemic, being the first true pandemic-born game, being made specifically with that event in mind. The objective is simple. Skip or jump as many times as possible, and you should come out extremely tired. You use Joy-Cons to emulate a real skipping rope, and you simply hop up and down. What's funny is that this game basically came out during the height of Ring Fit Adventures, so when I first saw this, it felt kind of like the budget option for those who didn't want to pay $100 for a fitness RPG. It still warrants you to exercise, but it has zero depth to it, and you might as well just not play the game. You play as a rabbit who is using a skipping rope to exercise. You can customize this rabbit with various costumes based on Nintendo franchises. The game uses 8-bit sound effects for music and will play at the speed that you are hopping. Nintendo was actually successful with this game. A lot of people downloaded this game, and Nintendo started tweeting out milestones with hitting a huge number of hops and skips. I guess that's technically the multiplayer aspect of the game. Furthermore, this game wasn't really planned to be a long-term thing, kind of like Super Mario 35, and Nintendo devs probably created this purely out of boredom and COVID restrictions. Nintendo planned to remove this in the autumn of that year, but they changed their minds, and now this game is basically on the eShop forever. At least until we hear otherwise. FYI, that's really all I have to say about this game. The script I wrote for this game is less than a page long. What's the ranking of this game? C tier. The second game I'm reviewing is the fourth and final kit of Nintendo Labo, the VR kit. This was the only Labo kit that I actually wanted to buy because Nintendo was dipping their toes into VR for a second time, and I didn't have any actual VR thing at the time too. I will go out of my way to say that the VR kit is the least creative of the four. I think that's pretty well established. However, it's also the most fun, arguably. The VR kit does an amazing job teaching you the technology behind the Nintendo Switch, with lessons talking about HD Rumble, the IR camera, how VR technology works, and how the Nintendo Switch turned itself into a VR console. It's pretty interesting, base level analysis, and the story is mildly amusing to follow through. Yes, there's actually a story. There's also a crafting aspect to this game, as with all of the other Labo games, which is generally what draws most players in. It feels much like following through LEGO instructions, and there really isn't anything you'd miss. The instructions do give you decent instructions on how to properly fold and put together pieces without damaging the accessories, and it also does well to teach you how to store away your accessories in case you decide that you're gonna regularly use them. The music does really well to keep you motivated throughout your time building this, as it usually takes more than maybe 6 hours, and there are also checkpoints in case you didn't want to sit in front of the TV for said 6 hours. With how complex the accessories are, I will praise Nintendo for being able to give us clear and concise instructions. Then we have the games themselves. Being a VR game, you'll get the usual textbook shooter game, kitchen game, puzzles, and other simulations. The ones that are interesting are the games that require you to perform real actions, such as blowing a fan or using an elephant snout to pick apples. However, these very bite-sized minigames give more of a frills kind of feeling rather than an actual experience. The most progression we would get is in that rail shooter game, where you just play through levels in a classic arcade rail shooter and just get the high scores possible. However, even the game has a limited amount of depth to it, and you'll find yourself completing the whole thing within maybe less than an hour. There are some VR videos you could watch, but I don't think that affects much of the experience. Being a Nintendo Switch, VR runs at a very blurry low resolution, so if you ever want to get motion sickness, use this. Where this game gets most of its depth is in the Toy-Con Garage. Basically, it's Scratch or Game Maker, stuff that you find online to program your games, but it's designed with VR in mind. You get to program your own games or experiences through VR. I personally have not played around with this as much as I wanted to, but it's pretty cool to see some of the projects that some people have created. Someone created an entire Doom game with this, and it actually looks insane. Where do I rank this game? Probably a B tier, because it could definitely use a lot more content. I might review the actual accessories themselves in a separate video, but I mean, if I really want to get motion sickness, then sure. The third and final game in this review is Game Builder Garage. I think the same people who made Labo games saw the potential with the Toy-Con Garage and decided to make a follow-up game dedicated to programming. The game teaches you the basics of video game development and computer science as a whole. I think that's one reason why my little cousin was able to push through elementary school computer science very easily. Much like Labo, the game uses blocks of code to program games, and you don't really need to go through much of the processes of creating objects and other computer science mumbo jumbo. The game covers a variety of different types of games, and you end up creating some small experiences. If you wanted to make your own game, the sky's the limit. Most of the time. There are still limitations, like you can't really modify the objects as freely as you would in real programming, and more meant to be as a basic starter kit to teach you the basic concepts of programming, especially in the video game development field. However, you don't really need this game to learn computer science or game development. If anything, just start learning programming with languages like JavaScript or Python, and then work your way through languages suitable for game development like Java, C# or C++. There are various free programs out there that can teach you the basics at the same level as this. Like I said before, Scratch. It's just a website that you can run on your crappy potato computer and come up with the exact same thing here. Maybe, well, 2D games, sure, but it's the same idea. And that one is free. This game costs money, so like it's not really necessary to pay for this when you have all these other resources to work with. The game does allow for projects to be shared, so it does get a little more creative when you get to see what other people have created. For one thing, the guy who made Doom on Labo VR brought it over to Game Builder Garage, no surprise. Not much else I could say about this game. What ranking do I give this game? Also B, not really impressive, but interesting. To recap, I reviewed Jump Rope Challenge, Nintendo Labo VR Kit, and Game Builder Garage. Jump Rope got a C tier because it barely is a game to begin with, but it's not actually that bad for a basic exercise app, plus it's free. Labo VR and Game Builder Garage both got Bs because they only scratched the surface of what they're going for, and could use a whole lot more content and unique features to differentiate itself from the competition. Hope the next quirky Nintendo games I review aren't as bad as these.